Okay, so the next part of our video is adding a database. So we'll go back to our code and see why we would need to add a database. The problem with our code right now is we are just using a JSON file, which is we are reading and writing from it. And of course, if we have many users, it will have a problem with, of course, reading and writing that file, especially if there are concurrencies, or meaning if they are reading and writing at the same time on the same file. There will be conflicts that will happen if we do this. So to improve our setup, we would need a proper database to manage our data instead of using files. To be able to replace our files with the database, we must choose which database to use. For our setup here, we will use a NoSQL database for this exercise. So let's set it up. What I did before is to install one NoSQL database, which is using MongoDB, which is one of the most popular NoSQL databases out there. So as you can see here, I'll just put the link below for you to be able to install the NoSQL database. I'll just put the link below, or I'll just put the link in the description. I'll just put the link on how to install MongoDB in this. I'll just put the link in the description on how to install MongoDB in your system, so that you can use a NoSQL database for our setup. But if you are using our course pack, which is a VM, it already has MongoDB installed in it. So for us here, we will install a package that will allow the server that we are programming to be able to read the MongoDB instance that we have installed. So for us, we would need to have Mongoose. Again, if you are using the course pack, this package is already part of the system. After installing, the next thing to do is to create a file, db, and then we'll create a folder called models, and we'll also create a file, index.js, as well as inside the models we'll create a to-do.js. So for us, we'll add these things. Sure, add Mongoose package. There you go. And then for this one, add preparation files for using MongoDB. And that is our setup. So we'll create a way to connect to our MongoDB. So for this one, we will use Mongoose, require Mongoose. Then we will connect to the MongoDB instance. Because we are using the MongoDB instance that is inside our local system, which is running in our local system, we'll use the usual way of connecting, which is MongoDB localhost, and it will always be port 27017. And let's have test as a setup here. we just use the new parser and use unified topology. And then we'll create to set up a connection configuration. Again, we'll remove this. Then exports.connect. Which is a function, actually a promise. Create a promise. Const connection from Mongoose. Connection on error. We reject the connection. And connection once open, we resolve the connection. So it returns a promise. This creates a connection to the database. The next thing that we'll do is, of course, export it out. So we have created our, this is supposed to be not in to do but in index, and index and not in to do. To do should be in models. Index should be in DB. Move. So there you go. That's our setup. You should do this. Add connection. Setup for Mongoose. The thing with models is we can set up a way to define the data structure of our model. So for this one, we would set v4 UUID. We require UUID for this one. And module exports, that means this would be a default export function. What we'll need to do is, let's say, import mongoose dot mongoose. This exports the model for to do, which is the model for our database. Then we'll use the schema to define the data types that we are using for the to do. So we create a schema out of it. New schema. The first is ID, which is a type string. Immutable because it doesn't change, or we should not change it. We should not be able to change it. It is an index so that we can search through it. And then unique, because it should be unique. And the default would trigger, if what I mean by default here is that if we don't put an ID, it will do the default, which is actually the function UUID. So it's the same as calling the function this way, but it's easier to just send out the function itself or use the function itself. So now we'll define the text, which is also a type string, and it's required to have one. We'll also add done, which is a type boolean. Required it's also required, but if we don't put one, we can have a default value of false. Now in this case, this is not a function. That means the default would always be a value of false if we don't put a value on it. Let's do this. Let's remove the others, close others, so that our tabs are clean. Then date created, type, number. The default would always be a function, a call to a function that is date get time, so that creates again. This is required, as well as date updated. So there you go. We have set our schema, and we just return the model with a collection name to do, and this is the schema. Lastly, we go back to our index and we require our we export our to do as a models to do mongoose. Now that we have set it up this way, we will work on, well, committing our setup. So feed add a model for to do in mongoose. Yes. Now that we are done, we'll add the connection to our app JS. What we'll need to do is do the connection db. We do the connect. So right before setting up our routes, we should be able to call the connect so that our database would connect. And then let's see if it works. Okay. There you go. Now it's running, so it works. Let's add it up. Feature the ability to connect to mongoose. Let's say always. So now that we are done, let's try it out when we create our setup. So for us, I have a system called Robot3T, which allows me to have a visual on the MongoDB that we have set up. So let's connect to that. We'll use, instead of this one, we'll use not the test, we'll use CMSC, or we'll use to do CMSC 100. Let's connect, then refresh this, and we'll see that we have the new database connection with collections called to do, and it means that we don't have a collection here yet. So let's set it up to use our create create.js, we change the create.js to use the database. So for us to use the database for create, what we will need to do is to get the to-do model from our DB, and then instead of using this setup, instead of using our file, we delete it. We don't need to do this one anymore, nor we don't need to set the ID. So that means we don't need to do this because it's part of our default. And what we will need to do is new to do there you go, and await data save. That means it saves the data. We don't need to write it on the file anymore. So we don't need all of these things. We just need the to-do app here. Okay, so let's try it out. If we go to our Postman and create, let's say, one. Now there are some instances added here, but let's see in our database. If we use Control Enter, we will see that there is one key, or there is one row that has been or one document that has been created, and we'll see that there's false. This is to do. If we do another one, sent, and then Control Enter, there are now 2 items. If I do another one, 3, and then another one, 4, and last is 5. Well, let's just add another 6, 7, and then 8. We are now able to see 8 items. The eighth one has the same things that we see here, and it's working. That means we are now able to save something in the database. Now, of course, the test will not work, especially if we are using the create route. So let's work on changing the tests for create tests for now. So to change that, we will need to change the way of calling our database. So our database we will not use this one anymore. We will need to clean the database later. So we will also db nope. We will also get mongoose and to do this one. Don't need write file sync and get to do's, and we don't need the file name and encoding anymore. What we'll need to do here is first const db what we can do here is instead of this one, we just do an await to do find one given an ID. That is how we find an item. Oops. We'll just try to find enter and then execute that query. So you don't need this. Let's do this so that it will look a little bit more easier to read. And then that would also mean that we should copy paste it here. Yep. Of course, we don't need to add these parts here. Now, for cleaning the database that we have created, we'll just await for const ID of IDs, await to do dot to do find one and delete. Given an ID. And then after that, we would close our Mongoose connection, that it will go to the next test. Why I use path here? DB. Oh, should not be here. Yep. There you go. It passed. So that means we are able to do this. So let's try changing every test to use the MongoDB before changing our routes. So let's work on using this one up. Cleaning database, this one. Okay. Let's see if there are new items that were created. So let's delete this thing, these things. There you go. Those are the things that I made, that I have made an error. So we don't need, we need only the to do and the MongoDB on this one. Don't need path. Let's check if there's path. Nope. That means, yep. This is the delete. Able to yes, there's the delete. Don't need this one. That means you should just get this. We just need to have the to do, and then should not exist to do. There you go. That means there is no to do because we have deleted it, and that should work. Now we don't need file name. Okay. So again, for the get many tests, we remove everything. Oops, we remove everything from here. Just copy the delay, put it back on this one because we have a delay function. Yep. Get many tests. We copy our cleanup of the database. This one. And then we remove the file name and encoding. For the delete, or actually for create, get these, get many tests for each to do. We replace it. Text database. There you go. No more of these. The same thing as this one. We replace these line of code to just get it from the database. This one should work. This one should work as well. And we don't. We need to get all. Let's say we need to get find then limit, let's say 5, sort, because we're going to make sure that it's sorted. So we need to sort it by date updated and -1. That means it should be sorted in the descending order. So we'll just get maybe just 3 for now. Let's see. Okay. Yep, we need it as to-dos, which is an array. We don't need to sort it in a descending order. Just do this. And that is how we set up the get many. Then get tests is something we should do, or something we should change. So again, change this, get many tests. Replace this one. Course. We get this. Replace this part. This should be just to do. There you go. There's nothing more to change here. And lastly, oh yeah, we remove this part. Lastly, go to update, go to the top, remove everything, then clean up the database, remove it here, and put it here. We should also, I'll just edit this one up later. Wait, one. Yep. So we copy this part, put it on this, as well as this, as well as this, and yeah, that one. So now the last part is, of course, just requiring mongoose on the app test. Just this one. And adding a after sync so that we can close the database. Close the connection to the database so that it can move to the next test. I change a different file. I'll just close everything. So create is working, but the others will not work. Of course, get to do's is not defined. So I think I made an error. Where is that part? In get to do's. Ah, right. We should for a given ID, we should find one. Should find one with a date updated start date. No need for this one, and no need for this one. No need for sort. Just need to find one and get the ID from there. So no need for this. There you go. Now everything is having an error, sort of. So what we'll need to do is change the other routes to use our database. So instead of this one, we'll change it to this one. Delete to have. So we'll have this const data is equals to await to do find one and delete ID exec. So the good thing here is when you delete an object, it will return the deleted object. So if there is no object that was deleted, that means it doesn't exist. So now we just remove these things and we have edited the delete. Now let's go for get. And for get, we can use the model. Use the model and just say again data await to do find one ID exec. Now we remove this again. If there is no data that was found, it should return an error because the ID doesn't exist. For get many, so what we do is to remove all of these things. Const options is equals to, let's say, if there is a start date, there's a start date, our date updated should be greater than, well, greater than or equal the start date that we have set. Else, we don't use any options. Then we just want to have a data await to do find options, then with the limit and sort. Let's just put it in a nice manner. Sort date updated is -1, and then execute the query. We don't need this. All of these things you don't need anymore. So we'll just add this part. If there is a start date, the query should search the date updated property if date updated is greater than or equal to the start date. If there is no start date, it will search for all given the limit. So there you go. Now we'll just update the last one. Update, what we'll need to do first is to make sure that we check if we are sending the right, we are sending the right payload. So I'm putting it up there, and then we'll check if there's an old data ID exec. So to check if we should do it, and then what we'll need to do is create an update option, which is just this. and exchange this. Now, for this one, if done is undefined and done is not equal to null, that's something that I missed the last time. So update.date updated. We just need to also update the date because we have again missed it. So given that, we'll get the new data out of the updated version, find one and update. Now we'll use the first is the query. What would be the needed query to find the file or find the document from the database, and then the update, which is what would be the properties that needed to be updated, and if it's some options. For this one, what it means is I want to see the new object that we have created. So that is what it means. And then I exec the whole thing. We remove these things and it's done. So there you go. Yeah, forgot this one. Get as well. Well, actually, we should put a sync in every function that we use. Update. That is something that we have missed. We should delete this. There you go. Now let's see. Delete is working. Let's try it again. There you go. Because we are sending. So this is a problem. I apologize for not adding parse in, because whenever we get a query, query is returning always a string, so we need to transform the string into a number, which is the limit, of course. So let's just add, yeah, so that is something that we should think about. So we send, so let's try it out again. Let's try it out again if it works now. There you go. Everything works. And the other thing is, we are now using the MongoDB. So we'll just add everything from here on out. Use MongoDB as database. Well, we'll remove everything here for, there you go. And then add tests to check MongoDB. There you go. We have successfully changed the items. We have successfully changed our program to use MongoDB.